we're also here to talk about some very real issues from the geopolitics, which we started with yesterday, and then we're now about to start our panel focused on private sector solutions, and especially how can the diaspora play in that. So before we get started, I'm just gonna highlight again, this is why we're all here. Welcome to CDIS, and again, we're focused for this conference again on the geopolitics and also the opportunities to network and to also figure out how we as a diaspora can help realize Congo's economic and social potential. And then also just again, this is us as the founders, just mentioned myself, Jim Gokwe is in the back, and someone will be joining us shortly. She'll be moderating our second panel. And again, the origin story, as Jim highlighted yesterday, was again trying to bring together diaspora. They're doing interesting work in entrepreneurship, philanthropy, and also it's working at sectors like education, healthcare to make that impact. And then again, we also want to highlight that this is our fourth summit, and I would say, sheepishly that we've had made an impact. So again, our first summit was in 2019 and have alternated between New York and DC every 2 years. And then also in terms of our reach, we've had in-person events, but we also have virtual events, seminars, webinars, you name it, to engage a broader community, because we also recognize that the diaspora is quite broad. And then we've also, leveraged social media, especially because our target audience has been millennial, Gen Z diaspora, so also reaching the diaspora where it exists across the world and also virtually. And so with that, I highlighted that we're gonna do a private sector focused panel. And the other reason why we have these panels is to highlight Congolese diaspora expertise. We have so much talent within the diaspora, and I think, especially when you're in DC, you see a lot of panels that don't have a lot of Congolese voices on there. So a part of the reason why we also have the summit is to dispel that, that the diaspora too has its expertise. So we have an esteemed panel that will be moderated by Kafuti Talhumbu, and he will also introduce all of the panelists.
The mic is gone. Okay, well, I will try to speak as loud as I can.
As loud as possible, and then of course introduce the panelists, and then of course there's Q&A and everything, but Kafuti will speak to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Actually, before I started, I would like to extend acknowledgement and appreciation to the team, the CDIS team, Laura, Jim, and Luco. Please, let's give them a round of applause, because it's taken a lot of work to get this happen. My name is Kafuti Talahumbu. I am the Associate Corporate Director at the George Washington University. So my role there mentally is pretty much lead the corporate partnership for the university and the private sector. Our panel session today is about market reimagined. So we will be discussing private sector vision for sustainable growth for the DRC. Our panelists will be discussing how companies from the Canada, America, and Congolese can collaborate together to engage the International Finance Organization in order to mobilize more investment to the DRC. So that being said, we are joined here by very talented diaspora, Congolese diaspora. I will kind of call on them and have them to elaborate, to introduce themselves a little bit more about themselves. We can go and start with Manda here. Manda Bavera is the CEO of Kuleta. One of the things that he's doing is very amazing, that he's creating a platform for women to sell the product to international market. As we all know, when you empower women, you empower the whole family. So please, can you give us a little bit more about your background and some work that you are doing in Kenya?
Thank you so much. My name is Manda Borevu, born in Kolwezi, raised in South Africa and the US. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Kuleta, which is a social for-profit business where we are training women vendors, like Kafuti mentioned, to sell non-perishable products here in the US. So bridging and providing market access for women vendors is really what underscores our business. And the vision really is to bring, catalyze, and really engage in economic development within local markets. So I went to undergrad at the University of Southern California. I studied communications and philosophy, politics, and law. I worked for 2 years for a software supply chain company based out of Silicon Valley. I got my master's in education policy and analysis from Harvard, and then my master's in public policy from the University of Chicago, where I just graduated this past June. And so part of my passion really is bridging the private sector with the public sector to enable development growth. So that's just a little bit about me.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we get a chance to talk a little bit more about that. Oh, the mic is back on? Okay, great. Can you hear me better now? Okay, great. So our next speaker, Stefan, I did call him Stephanie, being being an American here for some time, but Stefan Bossier is one of very few Congolese who are involved into a critical mineral. They are bold enough to start the first American refinery company that will be able to process critical mineral from copper to Bolt, so cobalt, yeah. So we are very pleased to have him here. I will give him a chance to elaborate more in terms of his background and some of the things that Richland Element is doing to drive critical mineral forward.
Well, as you say, my name is Stefan Bossier. Don't worry, I mean, people call me Stephanie all the time. You should see me in Starbucks. Like, I give the order. I always say I spell it Stephane, and then I just say in the background, Stephanie, and they see black dude showing up. You know, it's hilarious. I love that. Anyway, so Stefan Bossier, born and raised in Kinshasa. Moved to the state when I was 12 or 13. I came in as an F1. I went to a boarding school in the state of Connecticut. Where I finished, and then I went to college at Wentworth Institute of Technology, then transferred to the University of Arkansas, where I got my bachelor degree in civil engineering. I'm currently a professional engineer licensed in the state of Arkansas, where I practice engineering, and which is also how I met my partners with whom we started Reimagined, in the goal of, as you say, to really reshape the supply chain, redefine the Congolese supply chain, basically, of critical minerals. Again, I'm an engineer. If you guys expect me to say a lot of things like him, you guys are talking to the wrong person. I keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. So finally, last speaker here, Richard Mbokani, is focused on the legal. Everything that we do pretty much support by the legal, having a strong legal system that will mobilize more economics investment for the DRC. So Richard is very passionate about helping American and Canadian companies to get into the DRC, at the same time be able to protect the asset. So I will give Richard a chance to speak a little bit about himself and some of his vision in terms of how he's trying to help American and Canadian company into the DRC market.
Thank you. As I say, my name is Richard. I was born in Kisangani, but I grew up more in Goma. And I completed my studies there, university. I even started practicing law in Goma. In the same time, I was teaching. And after that, I think I went to Geneva, in Switzerland, where I completed LLM in law. And I went back to Goma, teaching and practicing law. Then I came back to Canada. I went back again to school, completed my Juris Doctor. And this helped me to just integrate the law practice. I started briefly in the Ministry of the Attorney General in Ontario, but I stopped and had several experiences. I might forget some. And I ended up by just opening my own law firm, BC Kambokani Law. And right now, when I heard about the initiative they have, I was really interested. I thought that it was important for me to come and just contribute on what Congolese diaspora can do to get involved in the business in Congo, and also to participate in the change, because usually we complain about Congo, but I think we just need also to really get involved in the system and be able to bring about changes that we all seek. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first question. Since you're at the mic, I will start with you here. Recently, we see that the DRC government is actively seeking foreign investment from the US to the Middle East country like Qatar and more there. Can you share with us a little bit more from your perspective what makes this moment different from the previous effort?
I would say that this moment is really different because I can see a clear engagement from the US side, because usually in DRC, even this comes from many of our politicians, there's a complaint that once we raise DRC issues, no one hears outside. But seeing that in the United States, this question can really be taken seriously, it makes really this time special. And on my own opinion, I think that it's really a good time for us to grab this opportunity and make sure that we can take the most of it, but in a good way. But for this to reach it, we need to be able to really understand the system. We really need to be able to really negotiate best interests of Congolese people. We really need to understand how the system works. But the truth is, this time is really special, and we need really to grab it with both hands and make sure that we take all benefit necessary.
Thank you, Manda. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes. I think this moment isn't so unique. As we heard from Vemba last night, the DRC Africa has been central to many different revolutions, whether it's AI now or the industrial revolution, the slave trade, and so on and so forth. However, what I do think makes this moment unique is the fact that the US has such explicit interest in the DRC. As we all know, there's currently in talks this mineral deal between the US, Rwanda, and the DRC. And so this is a critical moment that could really affect the trajectory of the DRC, whether it's negative or positive, depending on the terms, of course, of this deal. And so I think for that reason, it is really a unique moment in our country's history. I also think, considering the context of what has been this year with the escalation of violence in the East in January, and also with all the other conflicts, whether it's Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, and so on and so forth. I do think those kinds of conflicts and the deterioration of territorial sovereignty is a pattern that we are noticing, which also makes this conflict in the DRC and the deal that's being negotiated very unique. Also, we cannot not acknowledge the really significant, dramatic foreign policy change on the part of the US. So the dismantling of US aid, for example, the very protectionist foreign policy agenda from the Trump administration really has shifted a lot of what foreign policy used to look like, let's say, a year ago. So I think those are some of the factors that do make this moment unique. And like Richard mentioned, the success and the trajectory really of the DRC will heavily hinge upon the terms of this deal that we have yet to hear more about.
Thank you for that. And I will also comment that this type of efforts showing some result as well. About a few weeks ago, the DRC received a commitment from Qatar, investment of around $20 billion or so. Stefan, I would love for you if you can talk a little bit more about future success. Do you expect this type of effort to produce more this type of investment in the future?
Okay, first I would like to say, because again, as I was introduced, I'm the VP of Reimagined Element, which is we are building a cobalt refining facility in the state of Arkansas, and the plan is to, through our partners, to source the cobalt directly from the Congo. And again, as you know, the mining industry requires a lot of capital. And this type of investment, as you just mentioned, from Qatar Qatar is not the only place that is actually pushing into this kind of investment for the mining industry in the DRC. The United States, you did mention the dismantling of USAID, which is a very unfortunate thing for many sectors. But one thing that we cannot agree on now is the clear interest by the United States to the mining industry in Congo. And as I was saying the other day, with interest comes a lot of funds, and with funds also comes a lot of political support. And right now we are sitting at a very, as my panelists say, we are sitting at a critical moment that now we have the chance to not only be a part of the forming of the supply chain, but to actually be to be the building blocks of the new supply chain. And this is where Reimagined Element is seeing an opportunity, because we can see the clear interest by the United States government and the will of the current administration to work directly with the Congolese people, and that will and that support is not only showing through the policies that they are passing through, but also through the financial support that they made available. About that, I'm just going to make a quick half announcement, half because it's an announcement for an announcement. We'll have like a really big announcement from Reimagined coming up very soon about the opportunities that we have found, the help that we have received from the federal government here.
Good.
Thank you for that half announcement. We're looking forward to receive the full announcement. And it's a great point that you mentioned about supply chain,
Yes.
because when we're talking about supply chain, have multiple steps from structuring the mineral, processing the mineral, transporting the mineral. So there's so many steps that the Congolese diaspora business can be involved with. Thanks for the invitation. I'm sure many of our audience here will think through how they can also get involved with the mineral supply chain. Manda, you have a business in Kenya, right? Mm-hmm. Can you share with us a little bit more about your experience there in Kenya? Also, where do you see some of the opportunity in the DRC that Congolese diaspora can also get involved as we're thinking about supporting business in the DRC?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I got my first master's in education policy analysis from Harvard, where my focus really is on investing in human capital, right? I think one of the big errors in the DRC is that our economy, our GDP is overly reliant upon extraction and mining. We have a very large population. We are around, I think, close to 200 million Congolese people. And so 49% of the population are aged between 15 to 29 years old. We have the third fastest growing population in Africa, the sixth in the world. And so to that end, we have significant human capital available and really ready for opportunities. So with Kuleta, what we've been able to do as of this past month, we're able to graduate around 96 women and girls in Nairobi as part of our vendor pipeline. And so thinking through how we can sustainably grow and change the trajectory of the DRC is also thinking about diversifying our economy away from relying upon mining and other extractive industries that make us very dependent on external shocks. And so that is really what I view as a significant opportunity that isn't really spoken enough about or really considered when it comes to Congo, is that we have a very, very large youth population. They are very savvy. They have access to social media tools. With the growth of AI at Kuleta, what we are really trying to push is the democratization of being a vendor. So not having to have a physical storefront, but being able to sell things online, making it easy for people to have access to markets abroad. And so that's really the vision that we have where we are based now in Nairobi, and how we can scale into the DRC as well.
Thank you for that response. I think human capital is a very valuable investment plus there's a lot of resource. We're talking about like African development banks have significant finance that's just kind of dedicated for human capital. IFC, the World Bank, many foundations around the world. So I think getting involved in human capital businesses, it will be a great business for many of our diaspora to explore as well. So Richard, let me turn to you here when we're talking about the foundation, the legal system. From your perspective, what are some of the legal system regulation that need to be adapted to change in the DRC to attract more foreign investment and to lead to more public-private partnership in the future?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm really impressed by the project you're just conducting. That's really good. And if we have to think about the legal aspect we need to take into account to foster great investment, I would say that in Congo we have what I can call acceptable rules. Let's say for the mining sectors, we have many complaints that they usually qualify Congo as having a volatile mining sector code, where laws can change anytime, and if you're an investor, you not really feel secured. And this can discourage those who are just willing to invest in Congo. For example, in Congo, in 2018, they changed a lot of things. What about related, for example, to the tax, to royalty, and also they promoted the kind of, they say, ad hoc. That means case-by-case situation where if you're an investor, you don't need to follow strict rules. You still have the way where you can negotiate with the government. And this is the danger because it can promote like bad practice or corruptions. And also, I think early this year, you've heard that the Congo put a ban for cobalt, like for 4 months. It was just willing to fix the market for cobalt. And if you're an investor, this kind of thing can only discourage what you're doing. But the best way to prevent this, in international investment law, there's something they call the stability investment clause, which need to be in any kind of agreement. For example, at the time, those who invest in mining, they used to have like 10 years. This stability clause makes sure that any kind of change of regulation within like 10 years will not be it's kind of a freeze. But the regulation now, they reduce it to 5. Some people, they think that this doesn't foster investment because they don't really feel secured. The second aspect is that the state, also the government, can change anything, like renegotiate the contract. And this doesn't promote things. And if it comes to the conflict, the resolution mechanism, usually in Congo they prefer to deal with Congolese legal system. While on the international level, we always support the idea of arbitration. So these are I would say major problem. And secondly, once you go through the second point about corruptions, we know all that global reports about corruption are really terrible about Congo. And this doesn't foster investigation. The last one about the supply chain and human rights, and this is really important for those who are investing here, because if you do not take into account the risk, reputational risk of your investment in Congo with regard to the protection of human rights, child labor, or other kind of human rights violations, you might find yourself here, no one will want to work with you. You might have problem with raising funds. Bank will not fund you if they know that you are involved in human rights violations. So these are really, really, really serious problem for those who are willing to invest there. But how can we address this? Through partnership and put in place a specific mechanism which can help monitor the risk I've just highlighted right now and make sure that we try to avoid it in the future. In that way, companies like from our fellow brothers here, they can still be able to raise funds here and just move forward in their business. This is just like a general.
No, that was a great example. So I can just even share from my personal experience. I was in one of the meetings between two companies, one here in the US and another one, the DRC, where they were negotiating in case of conflict, which law will have to apply. America wanted to have the New York legal system, and the Congolese wanted to have the DRC system. And they spent 2 weeks just going back and forth, because the DRC team is claiming that we don't have the finance to go to the New York system there. And the New York team financing the project, they're also concerned, we cannot really trust the Congolese legal system. Thank you for sharing that experience. So let me move back to you, Stefan. Can you share with you building this the first refinery company here in the US? Can you share with us a little bit more about some of the opportunity that you see there within the DRC as you're expanding more opportunity there in the DRC?
Thank you again for giving me the mic. I really wanted to also before I answer your question, to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Richard said about the mining code, how complicated the mining code is, and all the opportunities for problems that the current mining code that was signed in 2018 really showed. But again, this American interest to the Congo, at least from what I've seen, hopefully would actually impact that mining code and make it a little bit more clear forward, because something that we have seen through our conversations with our supporters that there is a problem about it. And in order to really go in and have that direct support from the American federal government, there needs to be some type of change. Again, we will see what the agreement between the Congolese government and the United States would be at the end, and that would kind of mark everything on that. But then now back to Ridgeline. Sorry, I just wanted to add that little point, because things are evolving pretty quick.
Yeah.
About Ridgeline, the opportunity first, it's important for me to talk about copper and cobalt in general. As you know, copper is used in almost every tool. From a car repair shop to a construction site, you will see tools made out of copper. And when it comes to cobalt, a lot of people don't really know the real value of cobalt. First of all, cobalt has really special properties. It is capable of resisting very high temperature. It has a really high strength, and also really strong heat. It can resist really high heat. And because of that, it actually makes cobalt the perfect material when building any form of engine that needs to be relatively light, but still resist really high temperatures. And because of that, it is used in the manufacturing of batteries, as you know, with the whole EV revolution, and also the manufacturing of missiles and airplanes, jets, all of those in the military. I don't have a lot of military experience, but my partners know a lot more about that because they are former Marines. And because of that, that's actually one of the reasons why cobalt is considered a critical mineral, because not only it can be used in many areas, but it also has a really big implication in the military sector. That is one of the big things about cobalt. And then when you look at Congo holds the largest confirmed reserve of cobalt in the world, which is about over 6 million metric tons. That is 3 times more than Australia, which comes in the second place at 1.7 million metric tons. Not only that, it has been proven that the cobalt from the Congo has the highest grade all over the world. So you cannot find any better cobalt than that. And another fact is that currently the refined cobalt in the world is controlled by China at 80%. More than 80% of the refined cobalt in the world is controlled by China. So that really means that in a few years from now, if there is any situation for which the United States needs to build more missiles to protect this land, they will need to have a permission from China. And that itself is a problem. And from that is where the real interest to the cobalt industry in the Congo comes from the United States, especially for the defense sector, And that is why I think is a clear opportunity, because Now we have an administration that is willing, at least has shown sign that they want to work directly with us and not create a supply chain and then impose it to the Congolese people. Because as many people know the Congolese history, Congo, from being a private property of King Leopold II to becoming a colony of Belgium, through going to 32 years of dictatorship under Mobutu Sese Seko, and then we have Kabila the Père, who had the first mining code, and then the new mining code signed, all that. For a long time, the decisions on how the supply chain was made in the Congo was done not by the Congolese, but was imposed to the Congolese people in the benefit of the people in power, who clearly did not have the Congolese people interest at heart. But now, the opportunity is that we have a clear, powerful interest, a clear, powerful person or group that is interested to the mining sector in the Congo, and is clearly willing to work directly with the Congolese people. And that is where the real opportunity lies, and that is what Ridgeline, we have formed a team of American and Congolese patriots, first of all, and engineers who are willing to really rebuild this supply chain, to give an idea of what it could be if the Congolese voices were actually heard from the ground up. And because of our business plan, we have received tremendous support, not only at the state level of Arkansas. One of the reasons why we are building in Arkansas, out of all places in America, is because Arkansas has been moving into positioning itself as being really the state that would revive the industrial industry in America. I don't know if you guys know about the lithium mine that is open in the state of Arkansas. There's Smackover. It's a funny town name. It's called Smackover. I find that funny, but that's where they're opening a lithium mine. It is already operating. Arkansas also has the biggest steel manufacturing entity in the world, actually, which is called Big River Steel. So the legislations for mining and for industrialization of minerals are already in place in the state of Arkansas, which is another big point and another big advantage of being in Arkansas. I think I answered your question, right?
Yes, you did. Plus, let me comment this. I think Ridgeline is a solution not only for Congolese, but also for American, and then Arkansas as well. So we really appreciate what you are doing, and we are supporting you. Wish you a great success. You come at the right time. We have the administration that's pro-business. Yes. There's a lot of resources there, even within the DoD. So you're in the right hand, and I know you are supported by one of my mentors as well. So let's talk about risk mitigation. Since you have Mike, I will go back to you. Let me give you a break.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, so let's talk about risk mitigation. Can you share a little bit about the strategy that you have put in place to mitigate some of the risk?
Okay, when it comes to risk mitigation in the Congo, the first thing I would always tell people is go to Congo. That should always be the first step. No matter what the industry you're working in, if you want to work in the Congo, get your feet there. When we started Ridgeline about 2 years ago, my partners and I, when we kind of figured out almost 3 years, oh wow. When we started kind of figuring out who to talk to in America, how to get everything done, started getting our feet in the water, getting scared, going to some conference paid for by Glencore, basically big Glencore war shipping events. But when we started going to this, and we realized what the problem was, the first thing I told my partners, hey guys, I know you guys came to Congo for my wedding, but let's go back for something else. Let's go back there and actually meet our partners. So that would be the first thing for risk mitigation, to actually get there and to see the people that you are impacting first. And then when it comes to the mining industry, there's a couple guidelines that are currently still being developed, but it is a new thing, so it's being developed but still being published. You have like the RMI, which is the Responsible Mining Initiative, and the RMIA, the Responsible Mining Initiative, and I can't remember what the A stands for, but once you go through those guidelines and you make sure that your business plan follows those guidelines, it directly de-risks the project itself, at least in the eyes of the government. But the key now is to make sure that that business plan that you have in place follows those guidelines all the way through. That would be the other thing when it comes down to the mining industry. And when it comes to the legal perspective, I would say have a good lawyer. Just have a really good lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer. I can direct you to our legal counsel for those questions, but all I know is they do a good job at reading the fine print and letting us know that, hey, let's have a conversation about this whenever we get there. Yeah.
Thank you for that great advice. So I have to do a quick advertisement. So the team who are organizing this conference, they're actually planning for Visit Congo next year. So please make sure you connect with them and to get more information. I would love to see all of you traveling with us next year when we visit Congo. So also, Amanda here, can you talk a little bit more about what some of the strategies you have put in place for your company for risk mitigation?
So I think with risk mitigation, I think it starts from the public sector. Our Congolese policymakers should be the ones at the helm of maintaining, de-escalating risk, and mitigating it. I think private sector businesses like mine can only do so much to mitigate what risks exist, right? So we know about the looting in 1991 in Kinshasa, for example. It doesn't matter how robust your risk mitigation strategy is if your business is looted, right? And so thinking through where is the actual source of the risk itself is through policy making. And so as a business owner now, one of our risk strategies that we use is through the sourcing of our supply chain. And so being an e-commerce business where we are bringing things from Africa into the US, most of our risk falls into the actual sourcing of these products, making sure they are of quality, making sure they are the correct product that is listed on the platform, and so on and so forth. So to that end, this is what we did this past summer with creating a dedicated focus on training, onboarding vendors who are equipped with the knowledge in terms of how to maintain inventory, market their products, learn about exporting, and so on and so forth. And that has helped us really clarify and put like a hyper focus on the risk of actually bringing things into the US that are of good quality. And so when I'm thinking about strategies to work within the DRC, it's critical to think about what are the different disabling mechanisms that are at play. For one, as we've heard from the other panelists, having a singular tax authority is critical. I was reading a piece that said something along the lines of some businesses have to pay up to 24 different taxes from different entities to do business in Congo. That is simply just ridiculous, right? And so maintaining an organized and cohesive tax system is critical to maintaining and de-escalating risk, to invite private sector engagement. Digitizing different ministries, like the Ministry of Interior Affairs, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Mining. Most of these deals that are being signed, there's significant speculation around what are the terms, how long, where, etc. That simply cannot stand, right? So if you are a business owner, in my case, we wanted to business in Congo, but we had to, of course, adapt to Kenya, given some of the risk being a first-time founder. As we know, of the recent escalation in Goma, a lot of businesses were destroyed, right? Simply because of the violence there.
But depending on the agency that you are working with, some agencies such as USTPA have funds even before they have funds available even for the studies itself. It really depends on what agency and how what the project looks like. For example, at Reimagined, we have had tremendous support from, we have been working with getting ready with USCDA, for example, especially for like the first step, which would be the premium study on it. But again, it really depends on what agency you're working with and the project itself, how big of an interest the project has to the federal government. I can't really say much
I understand,
more.
yeah.
But yeah.
So being academics, we open mind, even the private sector, so I know you have to be a little bit more conservative. So in terms of international organization, you can tap into a lot of funding. So a lot of these organizations have department called upstreams. So those departments actually have a lot of funding. You can actually tap into them for feasibility study funding. Maybe like one more question, and then we can open up for the audience as well. Maybe one more question around agriculture. I was just in the meeting with the Namibia embassy, and they were talking about the president putting a lot of priority for agriculture because agriculture can have some tangible impacts within the society. So I would love to hear from your perspective here within the DRC, what some of the foreign direct investment strategy that the DRC can implement to attract more investment around agribusiness. Maybe we'll start with you.
Yes, so in this area, we just need to review a little bit something about the code and implement this stability clause, especially for the fiscal policy. We don't have to have a policy which can change anytime with regard to taxes or royalties, or like it is the case right now. This really will not foster good investment strategy, especially in agriculture. And secondly, if there's a dispute, it's better to bring it outside. And also maybe implement also what they call the political risk insurance. Because in Congo regulation, usually they once you have a risk, you need to seek reparation with the Congolese legal system. And that's a big issue. We all know that we have some issues with our justice. So if you are an investor and you know that if something happened, let's say that expropriation or whatever, you are likely going to end with the tribunal court, Congolese court, to resolve that case. It can also discourage people who are willing to invest inside. So for me, I'll just focus more on the code, obviously with the supply chain management and human rights. That's really important, because if human rights is not respected, then you will have a hard time to raise money outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe audience, you guys have any question? You want to have any question? Yes, please. You want to? Welcome to you.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is very good. It's very good to find my other Congolese fellow here doing big things, so well educated, well spoken and stuff. So I'm very proud of you. So Congo is definitely our motherland and stuff. So I pretty much see all the project that you guys have in place and stuff. But one question that pretty much came from Mr. Talambu to you, my friend Stefan. So again, I'm gonna come back actually to that question to all of y'all sitting there. So how are you guys leveraging the risk right now, like all over the DRC, especially in the eastern part of the Congo, where there's all the money and everything that's been much going on? You guys have thought about pretty much going through some studies, right? When it comes to mitigating risk, when it comes to security, investments, and the physical, actually, when I talk about security, I consider this physical security too, when it comes to the people that goes there, when it comes to investment, importing, and actually with my friends there, with everything that comes to legal and stuff. So is there any studies that you guys thinking about already when it comes to that, when it comes to, mitigating security, the risks when it comes to security in the region?
I guess I can start. That is an excellent question, because security in Congo has been a question for the past, I don't even know how many decades. We've been an ongoing civil war. A lot of people had died through it. And unfortunately, a big part of that bloodshed came because of the resources, the extracting sector, from mines to rubber. If you go all the way back to King Leopold 2 times, But again, and when it comes to security, this is just me as a Congolese person. I am extremely hopeful that the interest that we are receiving right now from the United States would actually bring some change to it. Because as I said earlier, in the past when it came to source minerals in the Congo, the Congolese people were not directly involved in it. And we have examples in the world of countries to which the United States had shown interest in some form of product that they had, mainly oil, but through that interest, there had been some form of security brought with I don't like using the word exploitation, but I'm going to use the word partnership. And that is one thing that the current administration has been showing that they are willing to do with the Congolese people. And my hope is that with American interest in the Congolese mining, there will also be security for the Congolese people for, as we all know, this war has been funded mainly by entities who benefit from it. And once there is a clear thing to gain by a superpower on having the region stable, I hope that it will translate into a more peaceful Congo, which is my biggest hope as a Congolese person. Did I answer your question?
Yep, that's good. Now this is your perspective, so that's good. Very good.
Yeah, I think for me with security, it's of course a very complex context in the Eastern DRC, and I think it starts, like Stefan mentioned, you can go back centuries to think about how Congo even started as we know it today. Was Congo ever a functioning state? That's a question that is definitely unanswered, right? When we think about, the Congo Free State essentially being a plantation for King Leopold II to today, has our country ever really been built to self-govern and to actually have security, right? I think that is part of the issue underlying, the security problems that we see in the East, where the Congolese military itself is really not that effective. Do we have a robust border patrol system? How can you have security if you're not able to keep account of who is entering or leaving your country, right? I think those are really some of the questions that come to mind when I consider the security context in the East. As we know, of course, with the mineral deal that's on the table and the peace deal that was signed in June, that there are talks of security assurances from the U.S. into the DRC. It's very apparent to us that it's unlikely that the U.S. will have actual military presence on the ground. It's very likely that they'll outsource to different mercenary groups. We've heard of Blackwater, for example, that's been blacklisted left and right, yet somehow has found its way within this deal, potentially worsening the security context in the East. And so I do believe that security starts from inside, right? So with the DRC leadership itself, the military, a border patrol system, those are questions that only the policymakers within the Kinshasa context can answer and actually execute on. And until that happens, there's really not much that businesses like ours can do in terms of really addressing what's going on in the East. We do have hope, however, that this deal and what has happened this year since January, will be the end, and that there is going to be a shift. However, there's not much showing that that's the case, at least right now. And so that's what I'd say in regards to security.
I can just maybe comment really quick. I think security challenge is a big issue with the DRC, but it's just one part of the DRC. You know, Congo is still big. We can still have the rest of the country still be able to engage with the international community and do more business. I think as a private sector, the best way to really mitigate the risk, not only security, but any risk, is to partner with international organizations like IFC, Africa Development Banks, DFC. Because this is what happens when you partner with IFC. They will come in with the investment at the minimum at 35% of the investment. Let's say you're raising $100 million. IFC will put in $35 million, and then they will bring in the Africa Development Banks. They bring in the rest of other banks that want to be involved. So you can be there with 5%, 10%, but now you are covered by major international organizations that kind of protects your asset and protect your business. So the best way to do it, really partner with an international organization.
And I'll just add that the partnership will depend on our strengths, on our ability to be really, to negotiate good deals. And this usually can happen once we have a coherent international politics in what we are saying. Because in Congo, we have this issue. Today, you have someone like a foreign minister can say this, tomorrow another one. So there's no coherent, I would say, foreign policy in Congo. And this is bringing serious problem in whatever we are doing outside.
Thank you. I think it's time, Laura. Maybe one more question? Yeah.
I think we have time for a question.
Okay.
And also before you ask a question, I think Jim did it, but please also say your name so we know who's asking the question.
Thank you very much. My name is Mohindo, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the presentation. So my question is around the tension between politics and markets. We know that in many countries, politics dictates what happens in markets. In the DRC, if you look at what is happening, most people are concerned about a possible third term. And that kind of pulls what happens around the politics. So the question is, when we're talking about investment is not a short-time cycle. You are looking long-term. But what is happening in the country is dictated by the short-term politics. So a question to Stefan about what you are building is this refinery. Do you have plans to build another refinery in Congo? Because I know infrastructure protects and brings security. If there's no infrastructure built in the country, there's no skin in the game. If the refinery is still here, then if something happens, people can pull out very quickly. So in terms of long-term and the politics that is happening, do you have such a plan? And a question to Richard is there a way to speed up the investment process in order to exploit the investment window in that short time? In 2028, there are elections in Congo, theoretically, and the elections in the US. So there's a 3-year investment window that we have. Is there a way to speed up the legal process to exploit that window?
That is another fantastic question. The goal, I love Congo. My goal is to have all those refineries, all those being built in the Congo. Because by the end of the day, I believe that we, as Congolese, as Africanists, Pan-Africanists, we want to be not only used as a source of product, but we want to have the final product being made within our own land. But the reality is, currently, the infrastructures necessary for that to happen are not in place in Congo. For example, Ridgeline, we are working on developing a novel way of extracting cobalt from the ore that is supposed, per our partner and the vision of the company, that is going to tremendously reduce the amount of energy required to extract the cobalt, but it still requires stable energy source. But I'm from Kinshasa. When I was in Kinshasa, I lived in Limete, and we would have electricity from Monday to Thursday, and not over the weekend. And that was the good part. And I've been told that it's been worse now. So just for this sector, like just the basic infrastructure to even have a facility like that operating in a way that would be beneficial for, because by the end we are a for-profit organization, are just not in place. And those are things that the government needs to work on, because by the end those infrastructures are truly the responsibility of the leadership to make sure that policies and those infrastructures are put in place. That's your question?
With regards to the way we can speed up, because we remain with 3 years, again, it will only depend on how strong we are in our foreign policy. And to this end, I have to tell you that what I'm seeing in Congo now, I don't really trust that something good is coming. Maybe we'll just end up by just losing this opportunity because there's no coherence in what we are doing. That's it.
Thank you. My name is and I have 2 questions. I think they're primarily geared toward Richard, but anyone can give their opinion. So our first question is building on Kafuti's last question. So I don't know if you've seen, but Senegal is thinking of launching a diaspora bond to invite investment from diaspora as well as Senegalese citizens. Is this something that you could see Congo doing? Do you view something as such as beneficial? And then my second question is, I guess to all 3 of you, if you have in front of you an Irish diaspora person and they ask you, I want to invest in Congo, like what sector would you advise them to go in, considering the culture, the risk environment, and everything that's going on? Thank you.
Start with Richard, so you can answer the first question and then bring it down the line.
Yeah, great. So for the first question with regard to Senegalese diaspora, I think it's possible if we have the support of our governments. Actually, Canada or US have great opportunities for this kind of situations. But usually we need to be accompanied by our governments. As you may know, once you ask this kind of thing in Congo, you will not receive any feedback. Not a big problem, but we can do it. We have monies there. There's a way, for example, for the panelists here with the companies, there's a lot of opportunity to raise money. Here, sometimes some of our compatriots, and friends, they are not aware of these opportunities, but we have many opportunities to raise money here. And to this, to come back to your question, we can do it only if we have the support of the government. But knowing what is happening in Congo, I don't trust that we can be able to do something with that. The second question.
Which sector or which business?
I would say mining. With all the risk, it's possible, mining.
I would double down on that right now.
Except for mining, maybe support the action of Manda. Or being associated and so you put things together. It's better because in Kenya it might be better. And they were just planning to expand the action in Goma. But with the war, things were stopped. But probably maybe in Kinshasa. Because the initiative is really good and it might be really great project in the future.
Yeah, I can just come real quick. Yeah, I think it's possible for us. I think it's good to support minor business. That's one way to go about it. But in terms of the diaspora bond, I think it's possible for us to do the DRC. But the best way for this to be very successful, we have to kind of reverse it. We have to have the asset available first, where this money will be investing. So once you have the asset, now it's be easy to create a bond. In terms of the sector, I will recommend housing. It's one of the area itself. This is a few years ago, I started 2 businesses in the DRC where I had a trucking business. I had a lot of people working for me, and then I had the real estate. The trucking business pretty much is gone. So housing is still there. So I would say invest in housing.
I would say agriculture. Congo is a third, the size of Congo is a third of the US, size of Western Europe. We have around 80 million hectares of arable land, the most in Africa. We have the capacity to feed the entire continent. Only 20% of our soil is actually cultivated. So there is significant potential in agriculture. I think mining, of course, is very, very common in Congo. There's a lot of risk there. I think there needs to be more focus on other sectors that we can also have a comparative advantage focusing on. And so that's probably what I would say.
Congolese land that does not pay taxes, typically. You do know that, right?
Yes.
For example, like in America, you may own a home, but every end of the year you have to pay a tax on it. But your typical Congolese person does not pay taxes. It's not because the government never required taxes to be, doesn't want people to pay tax, but culturally, we don't have that culture of paying taxes in Congo, and that's been in place for a long time. And one thing that I think is unfair for the current, all the Congolese government that we've had, is that especially from us looking at them from the outside, we look at it and compare what we see here and knowing the potential that we have and expect them to simulate that. But every country works through its tax system. But the Congolese tax system is truly, taxing the rich, all those corporations from, wherever Europe, taxing the hell out of them, which is even why I mentioned that the mining code in Congo, I have had the bad luck to go through it 3 times, twice in French and once in English, just because of how confusing it is. But the code is to tax those corporations, those investors coming from the outside, because the Congolese people themselves don't really pay taxes, except maybe TVA, right? But when it comes to sectors like, all the other sectors, they rely, even though they have the potential to be great, for them to actually function, to actually bring some revenue, they need some basic infrastructures being put in place. You may have a big farm in the middle of Kindu or Equateur, but if you don't have the road to bring your manioc to Kinshasa, it will rot. And those are things that after all these years, the Congo, being an extractorate, basically that's what the Belgians did. They built 3 roads, and a train, That is all we had, and we never had the leadership that actually viewed the importance of just being connected. And which is why I say that I double down personally on the mining industry, because the mining industry, one thing that us at Reimagined are visioning is that we want to redesign that so that that sector, which, because it has all of the interest right now, can be the catalyst, like the turning points that would bring those big capitals necessary for the government to now tackle those main issues, once we have peace, obviously, of putting in place the infrastructures that will make all the other sectors possible, like agriculture and all that, pisciculture. So we have all of that potential, but it will basically rot at the farm if you can't take it anywhere. So that is kind of like why I double down on the mining industry, because that would be the clearest path right now to fund the infrastructure of the Congo, and then from that point making possible all of the others. But yes, the housing as well, that's big. I've been trying to buy a home in Kinshasa, and the 2-bedroom was going for $600,000. And I wonder how that's even possible. It wasn't limited, so if you can buy a home in Kinshasa, do it now. It's gonna be 10 million in 5 years.
Can I add something? I'd also like to add, to jump off of the infrastructure and the enablement environment for diaspora investors. Congo doesn't have dual citizenship, right? That is something that is not right. It's obviously a deterrent for diaspora investors, because if you have a business, you are taxed as a foreign entity. That isn't what should be going on.
It's not sustainable.
Especially because we are a country that has so many immigrants and refugees all over the world, right? So I think that's a really critical policy issue that really should shift to make it more enticing for diaspora investors.
Thierry with the closing question, or did anyone else? Okay. Can we do like a piggyback? So maybe Thierry, can you ask your question and Mark and then Christian, because we need to start getting ready for the second panel.
My name is Thierry Tubajika, and my question is, it's two questions, but I wanted just to add to her question about the doing business and what business can you do in Congo. My suggestion would be farming. Congolese love to eat. You can grow pigs, cows, chickens, and you'll make a lot of money. I know a lady who owns over 1,000 pigs. One pig sells for $150. So if you do the math, you can see how much she makes every 6 months, because a pig can give birth to 12 piglets every 6 months. And they eat, and within a year, they're ready to sell. So that's an idea. But my question is for the panel about the mineral deals. So we here in the diaspora, a lot of us have acquired a second citizenship, whether it's Canadian, whether it's American. Now with this mineral deal happening in Congo, how can the American Congolese diaspora or the Canadian Congolese diaspora participate in this deal as Americans, right? But at the same time, we're Congolese. So how do we get on the train so that we don't find ourselves
Stranded
on the back end saying, oh, we could have been there, but we missed it? That's my question. Thank you.
So retain that question. Kahuti, write it down.
Okay, sure.
She's going to ask her question.
Hi, thank you all for coming here in DC. My name is Claudine Sasa. I have two questions. My first question is I heard you all saying Fiston, that we call Fiston, made an announcement that you may be going to Congo next year. So, who you gonna meet? That's my first question. The second question relates to all of you here, as literally mentioned about insecurity, about irreliability, about all those things that is really summarized in the form of a highly corrupted government. So my question is, what is your plan in working to what you have foreseen? And we all know it's about corruption in Congo. Thank you.
Then I'll go to Christian for his question, and then lightning round for whoever wants to answer all these really great questions.
Thank you. My name is Christian Louvrobo. So I want to build on Leah's question. I wanted to, you have shared all the field where people could invest. So I'd like to know, are they available data? Since you all work, you participated in this area, like have you collected some types of data? And if they are there, are they available? So this is the data analyst in me speaking. It's like here when we have friends at the level of university here, they ask like, hey, I'm interested to work with agriculture in your country. How can you convince me to work with them?
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll start with you. The travel for next year.
Oh, the travel.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so in terms of CDIS, so last year we did our inaugural Return to Congo trip, where we took a group of Congolese Americans to Kinshasa, and as part of the week-long trip, we looked at different sectors. So we met with folks who work in, who are small-time entrepreneurs that are in producing, I would say, one of them was a juice maker, Jambon Jus, so we saw their factory and their property to see how they manufacture that. We also went to Manitech Congo, which is owned by a Congolese woman, which is also not the norm, and CV produces peanut butter, different jams, mango, all of that. And she has her own facility, her own factory in Kinshasa. So it was really great to see that. We also had a real estate day, and Thierry's company, 243, sponsored us, and we went to see some properties. And that was really great, I think, especially as a Congolese American, just to learn about the real estate opportunities. But we also went to look at the Académie des Beaux-Arts, to look at the art and culture, because you can't, remove the art and culture from Congo. And then we also had meetings with the U.S. Embassy as well, just so that they could also recognize and see that there is a Congolese American diaspora. So it was a week-long trip. We saw a lot, and then next year our goal is to go to Kolwezi. So we'll talk more about that after lunchtime, but especially since there's interest in the mining sector. Luko, who's one of our co-founders, went to the Katanga business meeting, which is in May every year, and I think she also recognized that she was one of the few Congolese Americans there. So I think it's been interesting to just also note that folks in Congo don't necessarily know or understand the diaspora in America, which also, depending on when people's families arrived here, is now in the third generation, depending on their arrival. So that is what we're doing next year, and then we'll talk more about it during lunchtime, so that you'll familiarize yourself with that. But I will give the mic to the panelists to answer the questions that resonate with them.
Okay, back at me again. You're making an engineer talk a lot today. So the first question, sorry, can you repeat that?
Talk about the mineral deal between the U.S. and the DRC. How can Congolese diaspora be more involved?
That was your question about how the Congolese diaspora. I mean, I'm involved in it. You really need to get in early on, right? First, it's to recognize the opportunity and find the right partners. Because I'm a big adept of the idea that you cannot do business in Congo through your computer. If you truly want to be involved in any industry, not only the mining industry, first thing again, go there. You may have partners that you spoke to on the phone, go there, see the mines. I took my partners, 2 ex-Marines, white guys, all the way to Kolwezi. We've been there. We've seen the asset. We've spoken with the people who work on the asset. We were there. Be there, see the people. Because by the end, when you look at the mining industry, it is not just for this. It actually impacts people's lives. See the life, like the people that you are going to be impacting with your investment. And from that, then I think, at least to me, it gave a different value to the investment that I've given to it. That's why I give most of my heart to it now, because I'm not just in it for the money on it, which is nice, obviously, but I'm changing people's lives, and I want to change people's lives. So that's what I would say about the mining sector. But I mean, every sector is different. Now is the moment, because the interest, I think now is the chance to actually put the Congolese perspective on how this industry should be done. Because again, we are at the turning point when the world attention is actually turned toward the Congo for the first time. For the first time, people see that a Congolese life lost is a life that had been lost. It is not just a number, So now is the time to capitalize on this tragedy, especially with the event that happened early this year, because everybody know about it. And now, whenever we have the opportunity to make sure that the deal that is supposed to be signed between the United States and the Congo will be a deal that actually benefit those people, the family of the people who had been impacted by the war for this long. That is what I think. But again, I'm a dreamer, so.
Good. Yeah, go ahead.
I think There are two parts to that question. I think on one end, as we heard earlier, that is the role of the government to facilitate and create that explicit intentional engagement with the diaspora. I know in Kenya they do have within the government an office focused on the Kenyan diaspora, right? We should have that as well in the DRC. Ruto came into the US, he was able to attend some Kenyan diaspora events in Atlanta and so on and so forth. Why don't we have that as well? We know there are a lot of Congolese in Europe, there are a lot of us here in North America. I think there's a lot of opportunity for the Congolese government itself to really engage with us that way. I also think the second part, on the part of Congolese diaspora themselves, I think, of course, with this deal and what we have yet to see in terms of the terms, there is a lot of opportunity for Congolese Americans to get involved, but where is the focus actually taking place? So we know that there's a lot of weddings, we love to go to weddings, we love to go to baby showers, but when it comes to actually civically engaging, attending protests with what was going on in January, having forums like this, for example, Congolese Americans need to show up more. So earlier this year, I was a student at the University of Chicago, a policy student, a Pearson fellow focused on conflict resolution. I was able to organize an event to discuss what's going on in the East. We brought on speakers, Mr. Dizolele, and so on and so forth. There wasn't a single Congolese person who attended the event. The event was attended by Americans and other Africans. Congolese people did not show up. We worked with the Congolese community in Chicago, tried to get in contact there with the president of the community and so on and so forth, and marketed it across different university programs, but Congolese people were not there. In Kentucky as well, there are protests there. We have a really large Congolese community, but getting them to actually attend a protest that actually is very important for their own interest is very hard. So when it comes to this actual business opportunity, similarly, it's on the Congolese Americans to have the interest and the willingness to go there for themselves, right? And to actually go into the DRC. We didn't have to wait for the US to notice our resources. We know what we have, and we have known. And so what are we waiting for? And so I think that's part of what needs to also change. I think it starts within families, discourse. Everyone is rushing to get married, which is great and very important. But we also have some real problems in our country that we really have to also speak about. So I think there are a lot of levels to it that needs to be addressed, but I also think really critical to that is agency of Congolese people themselves to realize that it's on us to go and fix and solve and engage and do what needs to be done, and not to have to wait for external stakeholders to get attention first.
Your work, So really quick on that one, I would also echo the same thing you just mentioned, that Congolese diaspora need to be more engaged as well. So next month, during the World Bank and IMF annually meeting, there will be a lot of sideline event. George Washington University will be organizing event around investment, around critical mineral, in collaboration with State Department, the White House, and perhaps the DRC government as well. So I think you just have to be involved and find a way to collaborate and partner with American company, and perhaps that can lead to some joint opportunity. So Richard, can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that Mama Claudine mentioned about security? We spoke a lot about the risk, right? What are some of the things that would you recommend a company to take as they moving to Congo in terms of the risk and security challenge?
I would say to make sure that you comply with due diligence, having also a system where you can map, I'll say the general sector of investments in supply chain, making sure that you don't fall in these human rights violations. So I think that's the only way. I know it's not really practical, but the situation, I'm from Goma, I know what it means to manage this situation of rebellion. It's not easy, but that's what I can do. And to come back to the question asked about how Congolese diaspora can participate, I don't have now the details about the financial opportunity that the deal give, or say financial access for Congolese, but I would say that we need to have like small business, and once we have details about the opportunity of this financial links to the deal in Congo, then we can just jump on in the opportunity, like with Stefan. He's ready. If something happens, he can do it. But that, what do you think?
The question about data.
Okay,
data in terms
for
of
data in
business.
terms of investments,
Yeah.
I have to say that I don't have anyone right now. Maybe we need to check. And for me, I didn't really think about infrastructure or just buying, because I consider as a lawyer that real estate in North America is more beneficial than buying things back home. Because in Congo, you need, for example, to buy things like a house, like 300 in cash. Yes. And this does not benefit you. But if you you put the same money here, you might at the long term make more. That's why I didn't think maybe the farming and agriculture, but since I'm from Goma, I know that we don't have access to that due to war and all these rebel group we have around. Maybe outside in different provinces, it's possible.